At SFE Partners, we specialize in driving growth for mid-market B2B and private equity companies through tailored sales and marketing solutions. By aligning people, processes, and technology, we help businesses scale, optimize performance, and achieve measurable results. On this episode of Billable Banter, marketing team associates Destyne Greenwood, Nick Cefalo, and Nick Gosselin discuss the importance and influential approach the role of mentorship has in B2B and private equity companies.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Billable Banter, where we break down strategies, insights, and trends that are happening in the B2B world, along with the private equity world. Today, we have Nick Cefalo from SFE Partners, Nick Gosselin, and myself, Destyne Greenwood, where we are going to be talking everything about mentorship within companies. Give us a little bit of background about who's with us today. Nick, will you give us a breakdown of what you do at SFE Partners?
Sure. I am the manager of technology, enablement, and operations. So basically I go in and look to help optimize systems and kind of get the most insight possible from the data available.
So you are a data nerd.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
And we have Nick Gosselin here. Tell us what you do at SFE Partners.
Hello, I'm Nick. I'm the intern here. Data analytics, marketing kind of focused. Kind of doing alongside what Nick is doing as well with looking to optimize our website and to see how we can get the most out of our brand.
You're basically the younger, better version of me. With the same name, too. Yeah.
Same name, too.
I like what you did there because we're talking about mentorship.
Yeah.
Mentorship has been a big topic that we've been hearing with clients as we've done a ton of sales training and enablement projects. A lot of our clients have been really looking to optimize and make their sales teams more efficient, not just with number of deals, but developing them. So as we get into mentorship, we found a really good stat that Nick, you want to let them know about that?
Yeah. Retention rates for mentored employees are 72% versus 49% without a mentorship.
Nick, what do you think about that stat?
It's pretty alarming, but at the same time, it kind of tracks with some of the things that we see. You know, a lot of companies don't have in place any sort of SOP or guidelines for onboarding and training employees that provide some sort of guidelines. And it just creates, just such a wide variety of the experience that somebody can get when they're coming on. And not just the information that they're getting and absorbing, but also, you could have somebody mentoring a new employee and they just so happen to have a bad day. And that's going to completely change everything. So it makes sense when you think about how somebody new, and this is their first impression coming in, how that mentorship, how that onboarding is handled can have such an impact on the company itself.
And when we are talking with clients and we're brought in, typically the focus is how do we generate more revenue? And putting in mentorship, when we mention that, typically it's we don't have the capacity to do that. We don't have enough people or enough time in order to do that. Do you feel like if the retention rate, you said it was 72% versus 49%, that gap right there, do we feel that that is costing companies more by doing that versus finding the time or hiring that one person that can help mentorship? Or do you feel that that gap is a wash?
I have a few stats that I would like to throw in just on top of this, and then you can continue off of that. But companies with mentoring programs in place have profits that were 18% better than the average, and then companies without mentoring programs in place had 45% worse profits on average.
Yeah, that's pretty good and pretty significant. I want to follow up on the 72% retention rate. And I think it comes down to too is like if you have a process that works and you're not capturing it, the new person is not going to know. They're going to have to learn by trial by fire. And, it's basically going to be drinking from a garden hose, and you're hoping that they're absorbing the right information.
So with that stat and profitability being with the mentorship, companies are vastly more profitable than companies without the mentorship. It's a negative 45%.
Yeah, 45% worse than the average without mentor programs.
And so if we find a common thread that says, well, we don't have the time, we don't have the people, how do businesses rectify that?
I think you're looking at more of the face value upfront costs. You're just looking at what's it going to take right now to do it. And you're not having that kind of, down the line vision of, if we do this, these are the returns that we're going to get on this. We're going to have better retention rate. We're going to have, we're going to equip these new salespeople or whoever it is in your team with the right knowledge to make the right moves that are needed to help the growth of the company. You're also freeing up time from all these other people that are doing the mentoring, from the HR, from the interviews. Like, you're freeing up their time too. It's not just looking at the time that's required to make this sort of mentorship, these playbooks, but it's more of like the time that it takes away from everybody. On top of when you have that retention rate so low, it creates this revolving door, which is just terrible for culture as it is, and morale. Like, you're not going to have people coming in every day with that positive energy that when they pick up a phone you can feel, when you're looking at people leaving that week. The higher the retention rate is, the happier employees usually are. And when you're talking to a potential customer or client, they're going to feel that genuine happiness. And I think those are things that you can't really put a time or a price on. It's just the experience. And I think a lot of times that doesn't it's not taken into account when people are saying, oh, well, if we have to make a playbook and some sort of SOP and then the mentorship program, they're just looking again at that upfront cost and not everything else that is associated with it.
I agree. And I think one of the commonalities that we see within clients, especially as we are developing these sales training programs, or we're put in there to look at the sales team and figure out where they could be enabled more for efficiency and effectiveness, we usually find, and maybe it's just our personalities, because we are forever learners, but we find that most people are not open to mentorship or open to the conversation, and we're trying to figure out why. And mentorship, is it time? And maybe you can comment and let us know what you guys think. But is it time that people don't have? Is it the cadence? And mentorship doesn't have to be every week you have to meet with someone and do a one-on-one. It could be every quarter. It could be e-learning that you are allowing your employees to have. You could be reaching out to outside companies like consultants or different areas like that. Do you feel, we're talking about retention and employee rates, but also do you think that helps from a founder who's potentially looking to get their business acquired? Should they be reaching out to find a mentor that's gone through this process? Do we feel like that could change the way the company is structured and built and efficient and effective?
Yeah, 100%. I think, you don't know what you don't know. So if it's your first time trying to, get acquired, a lot of times we see, everything looks good up front. And then once you get in under the hood, it's a little sloppy, to be nice, and you just don't have the data there. You don't have the information. You can see you're successful, a company's successful, but you can't see why. You can't see how to replicate that success. And I think that's a big part of it too. Like, you're buying a company, you want to buy that success. You want to buy that playbook. You want to have those clients. You want to have that information. And when you're not capturing that, you're not setting up for that, you're not going to be as valuable when PE or whoever the investors are looking to acquire. And again, part of that is just not knowing what these companies are looking for when they acquire somebody. So being an owner, if you go out and get that mentorship, it allows you that insight to know exactly what they're looking for. You could be chasing 100 different things, and none of them are the right things that what you need to do to get the most out of, selling your business. And getting that mentorship can help guide that and also save you from just wasting time doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think this is a great way to segue to mentorship can also look like a lot of different ways. Mentorship could be just in the general sense of you have a mentor and they're guiding you. But mentorship, we can be looked at as mentors for companies. So consultants, SFE especially, because not only do we say, like, we have an outside perspective, we go in and we diagnose areas that we feel maybe could be improved and more effective, but we also are able to go in and tactically help fix that, build that infrastructure so that you can bring in more people and you already have that infrastructure put in place. Do you feel, because nowadays there is so many consultants and so many people, especially after COVID and everyone going remote and finding their own different ways, do you feel that consultants could be looked at as mentors, and how businesses should be utilizing different types of consultants even for their individual employees, not even just the higher level managers?
Yeah, so I feel like, maybe it's just me, but I feel like when I think of a mentor, I think of somebody older than me that has that extra knowledge that I don't have, just business or life. And, that's usually the mental image that I just create when I think about a mentor. But I don't think that necessarily always has to apply. Sometimes it's just somebody with the information on how to do something and why, the value that it creates, and the ability to, spot what needs to be done. I think of the old Febreze commercials, when they walk in, they're like, with the, you've gone nose blind to horrible odors, and it's the Febreze, and you don't notice these things when it's your own house. You don't notice the coffee stain on your rug. You don't notice that same odor all the time. It's not until you bring somebody from the outside into your house that they're like, oh, what's that smell? Or, they start noticing all these little imperfections that just you've gone blind to over time. So I think when you think of mentorship, yes, it's also, people who've done it, who've had the success and can share the insight on how to get to that finish line. But it's also people that can come in and look at your business from that fresh perspective and then have the knowledge, to be like, okay, here's where you can improve. And then these are the steps that will help you to do it in the most effective way possible.
Yep. And you had said that in your mind, you picture a mentor being older.
It's like Abraham Lincoln. Yeah.
Obviously, that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
But now more than ever, and Nick, you can attest for this, but I think we also can attest for this, as typically there is also usually another lead executive consultant on our projects, and they bring tenure, they bring experience. All of our executives have all ran their own businesses, sold their businesses, and are vastly successful. But we are also, especially like us in general in this room, we have that knowledge of these new tools and how to connect them and where AI is going. And granted, they also, but having both of those types of mentors, the new that's learning all of this and the experience and coming together is a joint force. That is typically usually like where we see the magic, and we see clients that are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't think about that. Us asking questions, whether it's in a workshop. We were just with a client and they asked us, well, can you just sit in the room while we have the discussion and maybe ask some questions that maybe we aren't thinking about? And do you think that having that ad hoc mentorship is beneficial?
Yeah, 100%. I think, I'm trying to think back to that actual one that you're talking about. I think I know the one, but it's the same thing again. Like, it's just these people in the company, if it's teams, if it's leaderships, you really have a focus on, your team, kind of your responsibilities, what's wrong with your team, not necessarily like how all the teams are and how, each team has its own unique problems, its own unique strengths, and how those all tie into each other. And also like how it has a waterfall effect too, that, you know, as soon as one team starts having these little breaks, that, you know, the other teams start to feel it.
Are you talking about sideload businesses?
Yes, I was.
Thank
you. That's such a better way to say it than the way I just dragged on. But yeah, so I think, you know, having us come in, or, you know, having somebody else come into those kind of meetings, just sit in, again, it kind of gives you that like unbiased opinion, being able to look at all the different silos and being able to, you know, identify where, you know, the changes need to be made, what's working and what's not working, and then how to adapt. You know, it's a big part of coming in with that fresh perspective, not having any bias, and just being able to think outside of the box is the real value there.
I definitely agree. With the mentorship focus in developing sales reps and just developing your employees, it doesn't have to be sales reps, but we are a sales and marketing consulting firm, and we eat, breathe sales. We have seen, we had in our own house, a salesperson who could do 5 calls and bring in the same amount of revenue as someone that did 100 calls. Now, I won't get into data because that's for a different episode, but
it's for me to nerd out on later.
Yep, right. Exactly. But with that type of mentorship, that is a sales style. That is a personal development skill. Those are 2 different types of people. Would you say that, and there are so many different types of assessments people take, or different things like that you do, and I know like in my career I've taken a handful of them. Do you feel that those personality sales tests and different things like that help companies get a better insight on their employee or their direct report, or do you feel like those are just pretty standard across the board and can't help build a development path for a mentor? Do you feel like mentors should have that before they get to know them or after?
Yeah, so I think
that was a lot of questions.
It was. That's all right. I'm trying to unpack them as I go. So bear with me on this one. I think that a good mentorship kind of, you know, isn't just about providing the information needed, but it's learning about the person that they're mentoring and understanding them first. Like, you know, figuring out how they best learn, what they need, and then being able to provide that insight and advice. That way it's actually, you know, becomes advice that's actionable, that they can do, that they can understand and keep using even if the mentor is not there. I think part of that is, you know, the personality and understanding each person, you know, their strengths and weaknesses, so you can kind of teach them the way that they need to be taught so that they can actually have those skills. It doesn't feel like torture. But also then how to best use them for, you know, whatever it is you're trying to do. If it's sales, you know, and they're just not a hunter, they're kind of more passive and laid back, you know, are they better just kind of staying with the customers for attention and just making sure that like customer success thing is right? Like maybe that's how they should best be used, and then mentor them on how to do that. Like, how do you become better at customer retention? How do you become better at making sure your customers are happy? You know, if you have somebody that's just hungry and just wants to go out, great personality, real outgoing, and they just want to talk to people and they're great at it, maybe they're your hunters, and that's how they should be mentored. That's how you use their strength. You know, we don't need to be like, you need to do all these things. You need to go out, get these employees and take care of them. If that's not their strengths, that's not what they enjoy, and they're, you know, why have them do that? Just have them do what they're best at. If you have somebody that can support them, if you have a hunter and a farmer, you know, as a leader, you know, you're kind of the mentor for these salespeople. Like, see their strengths and weaknesses, learn them, and then how best do you guide them? You know, because you're not only helping them, you're helping your clients and you're helping your business as a result of all that. And I think that answered all your questions. There was a lot, and I kind of got lost in some of them. So
I think it did.
Okay,
I think
that's a win. Yeah.
All right, so to close out this episode of Billable Banter about mentorship, what are 3 main takeaways if our listeners have fast-forwarded to the end, which I know my ADD would. What are those 3?
I think, as we heard from Nick with some of those statistics, would be profitability. The big one was really that how profitable and successful that a new business can be with the mentorship out the gate compared to one that doesn't have the mentorship. Retention, that what was it, something like 72%?
Yep, 72%.
Damn, I'm good. It's that data nerd side coming out. That's 72% with the kind of right mentorship and onboarding. That retention rate just skyrockets. And then it's just that mentorship doesn't really fit in that one box, or that Abraham Lincoln kind of persona that you might associate it with. That it could be a bunch of different things. It can be a business leader getting advice from somebody more experienced that's done it all before, or it could be the business leader just kind of understanding what his employees are doing, or even just helping to onboard and having that kind of standardized process to make sure that all your employees, when they come on, they're learning the exact same way and the right way.
All right, well, you heard it. Mentorship can lead to profitability, higher retention rates, and it doesn't always look the same for everyone, whether it's someone like an intern coming in teaching a founder something new, a consultant being a new set of ears and eyes on something that may have gone stagnant, or it can be a lot of different things that you can do within your company for personal development of your employees. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Want to hear more from SFE's experts? Be sure to check out more episodes of Billable Banter on Spotify and Podbean. Reach out and connect with us via our socials. You can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, or visit our website at www.sfepartners.com.